The Courage for Prayerful Worship. In his book, Surviving Hell, a POW's Journey, Leo Thorsness tells of the courage it took to worship in the infamous Hanoi Hilton prison in Vietnam. He tells of an unforgettable service held after the prisoners were rounded up in response to a failed rescue attempt. The most senior ranking officer stood up one Sunday and said, "Let's have a church service." The men agreed, but the guards forbid the service. The men discussed the problem and said they were all committed to having the service the following Sunday, no matter what. That Sunday, Ned Schumann stood up to open the service, and the guards came in and took him off to be tortured. After that, the second highest ranking officer said, "Gentlemen, the Lord's Prayer." While praying, about halfway through, he was sent to be tortured. At that, the third in command stood and said, "Gentlemen, the Lord's Prayer." The guards took him out to be tortured also. Number 4 stood up and said, "Gentlemen, the Lord's Prayer." At this, the guards not only carried away the officer, but began hitting the soldier with the butts of their guns and shouting for them to stop. Number 5 took his time getting to the center of the room, and before he could speak, the soldiers took him out. The guards locked the door behind him, and number 6 got up. "Gentlemen, the Lord's Prayer," he said. Thorsness says this time they finished it. He went on to say that even though 5 men had been tortured, they all thought it worthwhile. A certain parishioner who had been attending Sunday services regularly suddenly stopped coming to church. After a few weeks, the priest decided to make a home call. The man welcomed the priest on this cold winter evening and led him to a big chair next to the fireplace and waited to see what the priest had to say. The man felt certain that the priest was there to invite him back to church. The priest made himself comfortable and didn't say a word, but in silence he thought about the flames around the burning logs. After a while he took the fire tongs, carefully picked up a brightly burning ember, and placed it to one side of the hearth. Then he sat back in his chair, still silent. The host watched all this in quiet fascination. As the lone ember's flame weakened, there was a momentary glow, but then its fire was gone, and it was cold and dead. Not a word had been spoken since the initial greeting. But as the priest rose to leave, the host said, "Thank you so much for your visit. I don't want to be the ember who left the church, found myself outside in the cold world, and allowed the fire of God's love to die within me." We don't have to endure the tortures inflicted upon the POWs in the Hanoi Hilton. But ask yourself if you are willing to allow the flame of Christ to die within your soul because you don't have the courage or the inclination to worship.